Hey, bubbling. So today I just wanted to come in and talk about Cancer Moon. And I actually have a special place in my heart for Cancer Moon because my mom is a Cancer Moon. And one of the things, just to preface this whole video, right, because I want to go into the sun and moon alignments, is there's a real sense of vulnerability with Cancer Moon. And this is a high place. Like, this is high priestess energy. Cancer is the highest place in the zodiac, right? So having your moon there, you literally are the high lunar vessel, right? You are the high vessel, the high priestess, right? And that's really amazing. But what does that mean, right? Well, there's such a foundational aspect to Cancer, and especially just on the Cancer and Capricorn axis, right? Because not only it's feminine and holding space, right? But it's like cardinal and it's personal too, right? So we see this versus Aries, like, does have a sort of foundational element, but it's more creative with it, right? And just like Libra, like, they're very dynamic, right? But when we come to Cancer or Capricorn, there's a real sense of space, right? With Cancer, it's our soul and our home and our personal comforts, right? With Capricorn, it's the mission, right? The job, right? The duty, the responsibility. And so there's a real open-ended element, right? But each of them work different, right? So this is where we see Mars fall in Cancer, right? Because when it comes down to really just pushing the level and going to the next level and being creative, this is sort of counter um, rehabilitation, right? And just sitting in and soaking in and like really healing the self, right? In order to, or it kind of like Mars in Cancer would represent this real need to align yourself with your wants and your needs, right? Such that you really are not fighting in a passive aggressive way, right? But the thing about the soul, right, and our needs is they're so fluid, right, ruled by the moon. So it's like it can thwart your will because there's a real sense of discovering where I truly come from, right? And that creative ha potential of Mars is kind of stirring that up, which can create lessons of like really learning what I would fight for and learning what I want, but maybe through a depression of getting caught up in something that I don't want to be attached to and I want to get past, right? I want to create my own family. I want to create my own home situation, right? Whereas when we see Capricorn, like, because there is that defined mission statement, right? It's not fluid. When we put that Martian energy there, it's literally like just getting it done, right? It's like this really assertive, but in its place, driven, hardworking energy, right? And we see the similar thing, like I said, in Cancer, but it's more internalized, right? And sort of the external element of Capricorn allows for a solid path and a ladder to climb up to, right? So, what would be the flip side, right? Well, the flip side of this would be like Jupiter, right? So, Cancer, Jupiter does really well in Cancer, but it does less so in Capricorn, right? And why is this? Well, because Cancer creates around the soul, right? It's like sort of harboring around the soul, right? It's the crab that moves side to side, right? It doesn't necessarily inflict its will on how things go. Like, it's more catty and more eliciting rather than forcing, right? And so this is what really allows it to like create a solid environment for you to induct, right? For you to receive, right? For you just to enjoy and care for yourself. And so what this does is like all like Jupiter is kind of just like real liquid, empowering anything, right? Getting into everything and just kind of amping it up, right? Well, now that Cancer has a proper but yet fluid boundary, right? It's sort of like a garden, and all this water comes into the garden, and now it's just flourishing, right? But that is because of that open ended element, right? Because Jupiter is such a receptive energy. Now, here's the flip: if we take it into Capricorn, what we're going to see is we're trying to take everything that we're getting and only use it for one thing, right? It's like, oh, it's kind of like the Cancer's like the recycler with Jupiter in there, right? But Jupiter in Capricorn is more like, No, instead of like making this in bricks, I'm gonna print like a whole giant sheet and just cut out bricks, and all that's left, I'm gonna throw it away. It's only focused on that one thing. But Jupiter is so open ended, Capricorn will miss the point. It will miss some of the substance, right? Because it's not focused on the extra. It's not focused on opening up. It's focused on getting the specific thing done, right? Where Cancer does have the specific boundaries, right? But the thing is up for the open, right? That's what makes it the best mother, because it's like, I'm gonna make sure you're protected, but I'm gonna let you be you, right? And that's what allows us to receive, right? But that's the struggle with Capricorn, right? But like I said, Capricorn can become the one that easily makes it to the next level, where really figuring out that strong sense of direction and execution can be um, a struggle for Cancer with how receptive it is, right? So I just want to preface that so we can get a little knowledge about Cancer, right? So Cancer Moon is literally able to bring a sense of home and a sense of comfort to whatever they touch, right? And this is beautiful. This is literally like the high priestess, and this is where like value yourself, I feel like, becomes a real great message, because it's like you have, like, I almost want to say Pisces moon just has the sauce and makes everything magical, and Scorpio moon purifies, but you make it personal. Like, you bring every experience to the current the current place and resonate with the people around you in what is going on, right? Like, no one feels more heard than when they're with a Cancer moon, right? No one feels more powerful than when they're with a Scorpio moon, and no one feels more divine when they're with a Pisces moon, right? So Cancer moon is really bringing out not the like Gemini quality of her, like, oh, I get what you said and we're gonna debate that, but from a real like, I can feel you, right? Like, I can just hold space for you, and that's really powerful. So yeah, let's get into it. So, Cancer Moon, and I want to get into the sun sign combinations, right? Then we'll start at Cancer, and I think we'll move backwards, even if that's confusing, just because that's how I want to do it. Because then we'll start to see the moon from the sun um, waxing, right? Because we'll start with Cancer Moon, Cancer Sun, it'll be a new moon, and then we'll move to Cancer Moon, Gemini Sun, and it'll like start going into that first quarter. Then we'll move into Gemini Moon or Cancer Moon, Taurus Sun, right? And then it will be like almost at that first quarter, right? Until we get to Aries Sun. But anyway, bookkeeping, housekeeping, whatever, out of order or in order. Um, the representation and being a Cancer is really beautiful, right? Because not only so Cancer Sun or Cancer Moon, Cancer Sun, right? Not only being a representation of the High Priestess is really powerful, right? And I always like these energies because there's a real being a representative for the body almost, and for like the family, and that's why I say like the body, because it's more like the sun in its dignity is always future oriented, right? And there's a creative element um, sort of with our psyche and with our intellect that gets integrated, right? So we can always be like future thinking, right? And the problem with that is we don't really hear from our body, like we're hearing from our intent, right? And we're not like listening, right? And so this is the sort of power with Cancer, is to listen to the self, right? Or to see, right, with the sun here. Um, and yeah, you being an embodiment of this, um, yeah, you are an expression of the self, right? So you'll really be able to bring that to the forefront, right? Whereas like a Scorpio sun can really bring purification in its highest sense, right? Because we can also see toxification. But and then Pisces will bring like a sense of magic, right? Or delusion. But anyway, so the reason I bring this up is because it's so cool having this masculine energy in such a feminine sign, because we get to see where we come from, right? And then not only is that the case because you have your sun in Cancer, right? But it's also on the moon. So you have a deep connection to where you come from, right? And this could be like you could have Mars here and you could have more negating alignments to where you're like, I don't know my history, I don't know my family, but it's more about the soul and the solar resonance, right? Such that there's there's a foundational element to everything you do so that it's you, right? And that's really powerful. And especially having the sun and moon conjunct, right? um, there's a power there, like a creative power. So even though there is a connection and a sight to where you come from, right? Like not only your body, but literally like your mother, your family, right? There's a real connection to that, whether estranged or not. It's more like a theme in life, right? That allows everything you do not only to be based, right, to have like a purposed reason to self, not like, oh, this is for, makes sense, it makes money, but like to you it means something, right? Not only to bring that personal meaning, but to be creative with it, right? Because the sun and moon here are at a conjunction, and this is a real sense where the moon is being obscured, right? And it's kind of hidden by the sun, right? The new moon. And then, but like I said, the cool balancing aspect here is we are in the sign of Cancer. So the moon is in its home, and we're also looking in this lunar way, right? Even though it's like right here. So we really get this creative control, or yeah, this creative element on what we like and our tastes. And this can also create a sense of cattiness for real, because it's like being able to be so creative with one's own taste. It's like, well, if I could learn how to do anything, I want to make sure that what I do is really going to be it, and there could be trepidation in a particular direction, right? And that's kind of the Mars um, fall. But the great part is that you're really able to just fill out that space, right? Like you're really able to, um, once you do get lost in something, like fully immerse in it, right? Because like it comes from that foundational level, right? So now it's you, like you're embodying your action fully, right? Which is not something everyone can say. So A, that is Cancer Moon, Cancer Sun. So let's go to Cancer Moon, Gemini Sun, right? So yeah, from the Gemini angle, you are expression, right? So Gemini is diverging from a source, right? Like this is the interesting thing about Gemini versus Sagittarius. Like Sagittarius is trying to bring everything together under one overarching vision, to where it is almost kind of like merging with a higher feminine, where like Gemini is coming from sort of a secure personal place more in the beginning of the zodiac, and just diverging, right? Seeing everything we can do with this, like what is everything we can do, right? So you really become an expression, right? Like you are an expressor, right, as a Gemini. And this is in whatever way, right? Because we could literally express by like the way we walk, or just by our lifestyle, and our life as a statement in relationship to the collective could speak volumes, right? Like, so there's many different ways to speak, but it really is expressive, and it really does have that personal curiosity that allows for one to just do sensibly, or in a way that's heard, right? In a way that ripples, right? And just to play with that, it's a very creative sign, right? So coming from Cancer is really interesting because it makes one really relatable, bringing this Cancerian power, combining the air and the moon. But it could almost be like, I get this sense of going in a lot of places, but then like catching up to yourself, right? Because Cancer Moon is really sort of waiting to really fill out a space before it's its space, right? And the Gemini is just kind of gonna wanna go everywhere, right? So there is a sense of um, like catching up to oneself here, but also sort of being ahead of the game and sort of scouting, um, yeah, and sort of like from your lunar perspective, really having great sight on everywhere that could go, right? And that could be the gift or the curse of Gemini, right? Thinking about all the different possibilities, right? Um, what else? I really would just want to say on the because this is a manifest alignment, right? And you're bringing meaning to expression, right? So this is like a you are opposed to the other sign, like you're bringing a personal value to intellect, right? To what we do, to our abilities, to our communication, right? And I feel like that is the real power here, to really not only speak, but speak with meaning, right? And that's a super powerful here. And that's actually going to manifest, right? This is going to, because you have your moon second house to the sun, that will like actually manifest like a space or an ability or a substance for you, but it's going to be more of like a personally receptive kind of thing, aka you're really going to develop sort of like a satellite dish that you can take with you, and sort of whoever you want to pick up on, now it's like, oh, like I can really like extract everything from that and really eloquently bring it to the table, right? And express it. And so yeah, that's really cool. And like I said, there's no dry energy here, so it can be too relatable, getting caught up, like not feeling like there's too much of a sense of self, right? But Gemini will kind of counteract that. It's just how fluid Gemini is. Well, we'll feel a little bit out of control, right? Especially anchored in Cancer, where it's more giving itself to, rather than Leo just taking, right? Um, so yeah, so there's a real discovery of what meaning that one actually associates with, right? So when it is participating, when you are participating in this, that, or the third, you're not drained by it, but it actually is synergistic with you, right? So yeah, that would be um, Cancer Moon, Gemini Sun. Okay, here's a fun one. Um, Gemini Moon, Taurus Sun. So this is a work alignment, right? And as you represent reality as Taurus, like Taurus is the real, but you're coming from this personal and meaningful place, right? This place of commemoration, right? You really represent the what matters, like legitimately, right? And you are in an expressive frequency, having your moon third house to the sun, where you're just getting to this point where you're really defined. You've really defined what it is that you are working for, right? But you're really getting to this point, like you're really getting to this point where you're just defining everything you care about and everywhere that you come from, right? And understanding what is personal to you, Cancer, right? And doubling down and manifesting it and just putting your 2 feet in the ground with this Taurus energy and just going for it and really building as a Taurus, right? This meaningful home, right? This meaningful space, right? And whatever that is to you, because it is still um, this sextile, right? So there isn't really massive change. There's like a real sense of um, personal connection and then carrying it out, right? The Cancer moon is going to make it so you find a place, hopefully, right, in its best sense, because it can also be taken advantage of. Like you could get anchored in a negative sense. But the positive sense is really finding a place that heals you, and in that participating element, this is like your home, right? And now you can just double down and get to work, and Taurus will really manifest, right? And this will literally operate as an expression, right? Inner or socially, right? Because you will really be, just by you being you and having this solid anchor and you being so steady over time, you'll create such a gravity that your life will be the expression, right? So that's really cool. And I just love that because it's literally like, doesn't need to talk, but actions that are so personal and meaningful that the message still comes across, right? And I love that. So, okay. So let's move on to Aries Sun, Cancer Moon. So now we have just got to, with this Cancer Moon, um, this square, this opening square, right? So this is a real powerful alignment too, because not only is the sun exalted in Aries, but the moon is at home in Cancer, right? So there's a real power, like this is powerful, like when it just comes to the foundation of your being, right? The sun, moon, and you could say the ascendant, to a lesser extent Saturn. This is powerful, like props, like good job, you did something right astrologically. I just want to say that. And why is this? Because the sun in Aries can really define itself, right? Where it's not scared of needing to go through sort of any relational process. And this is where Aries will find its faults, right? In being a little bit too selfish, or maybe not being selfish, but not maybe spending enough time, maybe neglect, right? Being in my own creativity, in my own space, right? But there's a real sense of knowing what one wants, right? And going for it. And that's that's a gift. Like, don't ever forget that that's a gift, right? Because it's so easy just to feel like that's natural and not like know or notice that most people don't know. A lot of people don't know, right? And so having that ability and that sun exaltation, like all my Aries fam, like we rock. No, I mean, I'm Aries, so I feel you. Um, so yeah, so getting further into it though, this is not only like this kind of really has a creating your own lineage kind of vibe, right? Because not only are you moving in your own space, but you're making sure that this direction you're going towards is really worth like moving towards, right? And so this is where the square comes in, right? But also the real sense of change that you'll be able to represent, right? Which is sort of the evolution of a history, right? Because this is taking where I come from and with the Cancer moon, right? Literally where you come from, Cancer, and then going your own way with it and making a unique path, right? And so this is where the struggle or the square comes from, because by nature, where you come from doesn't need anything new. There are the traditions, there are the memories, right? But like Aries is trying to go in its own way, right? So there's a real ability to take what's been passed down and do it in one's own way and bring this new vitality, right? And this is the opening square of the moon, right? So you'll represent this sort of cornerstone when it comes down to our individuality, right? As an Aries, right? Like you're really at this cornerstone representing the need to sort of break away and forge one's own direction, right? And whatever that may mean, right? Because this may not even be like very much black sheeped, but this way may be this sense of needing to just to find oneself, right? Even in a loving family, like the sort of feeling of the disillusionment of self that forces you into this sort of grind in order to get it, like to make your own space a reality, right? And so that's a real theme here. And then yeah, like really you like being a representative of personal space and the the overarching value that that can give us, right? Because if we're in our own space and we're operating from a place that is our own, everything we're doing is going to be in alignment like with our spirit, right? And it's getting into alignment with where one comes from. That's the challenge. But then the representation of being on the proper path that like is mine um and sort of doesn't disregard tradition but like expands on it is sort of the theme, right? And that's really cool because a lot of people do feel stuck, right? This is a real like freeing and not just going one's own way, but understanding the friction between not necessarily forsaking where you come from, but respectfully revolutionizing, right? And that's just a real awesome thing to represent, you know. So yeah, I wish you all luck. I hope you can express that most positively. Because yeah, that could also go in a um, like in a more black sheep sense, but in its best, it's really nice. So, hey, so Moving forward, we get to Pisces sun. Oh my god. Oh my god, you aren't. You aren't a Pisces sun with the Cancer moon. You are. Oh my god. You just really care about illusions. You just really care about eliciting, do you? Do you just really, really care about knowing what you didn't know you needed to know? Is that your life? Really? My Pisces, like, I don't even know how to, like, talk to my Pisces. And, like, I don't think there's a straight way to talk to Pisces, do you? Like, I think one of the greatest things here is the Cancer moon will create a revolution in one's life that will kind of ground the Pisces, but not in a classical sense. I think it's more of a um, themes that will keep coming up in this sort of exploration of whatever this world is, right? Because well, like that's like Pisces kind of represents not only because Sagittarius represents the real exploration of the world, right? But Pisces represents the exploration of the mind, the psyche, and feelings, right? And this is where it can be so elusive, um, and at its worst, manipulative, and at its best, eluding, like showing us what we did not see by eliciting, um, like by finding a way to bring that out, right? Like no one else is going to care enough to really show what you see, right? And this is sort of a personal challenge because it's like there is a connection with this themed like starting point of Cancer, right? Of what you do care about, right? So there's that real ground, but it's still this um undirected search and journey, right? And so this is what creates like the best quality of Pisces, I think, which is the real eliciting nature and the fact that it can bring so much out that people didn't even know, right? But because there's that foundation, there's a real sense of sort of just continually striving and being able to go deeper into, I want to say, this mystery, but almost this ability that you have, and it may even feel like something that you work with, right? Not even feel like is an ability or something I control, but to really bring out not only the magic in people in the world, but also um the demons, right? And at such a sourced place of Cancer, like Cancer's the source, right? It's really going to be seeing not only the magical and like demonic parts of life, right? But the core of those parts of life, which is like, it's kind of intense, right? But like, luckily, I feel like that Cancer moon adds some ground to where over time you're literally just like this force of magic that is able to just be like almost like this divine mirror. But I don't want to say just a mirror because you're still you, just like this relationship, maybe even with yourself, but especially with others, that is like there's just no words for it, right? And in some way it does reflect, but it's more like it's so inductive of the unknown. Like you see so much more. It's not just like looking in a mirror, like you are the the next dimension. Like you are the dimension behind the mirror, or you add dimension to the mirror, right? Something like that. But yeah, I love that alignment. Pisces, I always find Pisces tricky, but that's a cool. And yeah, that fifth house alignment, there's a real connection, like a real personal power, right? Um, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So hey, Pisces sun, Cancer moon. So let's get to Aquarius sun, Cancer moon. Oh no, you didn't. Oh no, you didn't. So Aquarius sun, Cancer moon. This is the sixth house aspect. This is kind of hard, right? And this kind of creates this hiccup because Aquarius is this overarching sense of knowledge, right? Like the reason it's like the water bears, like walking on water, or like having access to the feelings but not necessarily being of them. One of the great ways I feel like to put this is by understanding symbols in the collective mythos and how they just look like signs to us, but collectively they are still symbolic and meaningful, right? Um, so none are really coming to mind, but like memes, like common ideological threads that we think through, right? Just think like knowledge, or they're just like kind of the known things that people say and go through, and this, that, and the third. And it's easy for me to say, it's easy for like a person to have a like really strong connection to like these symbols, right? And it's different for every person, right? Um, and I bring that up because it's kind of like if you're looking at it from this collective role of Aquarius, it's not as personal as like, okay, there are so many people that got triggered by this event, right? And now we know that this event is a trigger. Well, to the Aquarius, it's more like, okay, this event happened and it triggered all these people. It's not like one of the people that is being triggered by the event, if it makes sense. So it's like seeing the collective patterns in a more rational light, right? And so it kind of creates this, especially being so tied down to your foundation with Cancer, it creates this hiccup effect where one is trying to, or one is sort of like gliding over everything in a way and just kind of, there's this real sense of like letting all the information come to you. Um, well, not necessarily looking for it, like the detached element, right? Of just kind of going through and kind of orienting, right? Just great word for an Aquarius, just orienting everything, just knowing everything, just seeing, right? But Cancer is like this like trip, like every so often it's like something happens and you just can't do that anymore. Like now you're just in it, in this emotional depths and in this well, and like people are crying and it's all around you, and it's not just something that you can just process through, and there are like these hiccups that are happening that force you to sort of ground from a subjective level that bring you out of this sort of objective height and this eagle eye view, right? It's like all of a sudden something happens out of the blue, and it's like now we're in the mud, right? And so because this is a sixth house energy, it's just going to feel like work, right? Going through those experiences. But what's going to happen is that it's going to develop a sense of emotional strength, right? That gets imbued into your character, that transforms how you see things in order to make it so even though you're still writing from that bird's eye view, people aren't going to look at you like the robot, right? People are going to look at you like, oh man, um, like I could see why people would think that, but like if you really look into where they're coming from, like they really do care, right? Because Aquarians can kind of get this feel of, um, oh, like they don't really care, you know? They just, um, they just want to make sure everything's like the most rationally functionable, you know? Like there's like this kind of aversion to what the person wants, Leo, or this opposition to what the subject wants, Leo, and an aversion to Cancer, right? Which is what like you need, right? So there's this real sense of doing what's necessary rather than what is personal, right? And that can give people this feel of like you have like this authoritative, like distant, cold feel, right? And that's what might be what people get at first, right? But then over time, because of these hiccups, it's gonna be like if people really get to know you, they're gonna see, oh, you know, like they're gonna get it, you know. But it's only gonna be a select few people, especially being in Cancer, because you represent like it's still personal, right? It's not like Scorpio where now you literally represent a collective empowerment, right? It's like you're still coming from a personal place. And that's the hiccup with you in Aquarius. So it's like, and that may also make you a real representative of a community, right? Because now you're not just being objective, but you're in this objective seat representing a certain people or a certain place or a certain home, right? It's really coming from this personally grounded sense, right? Where if like you had a Scorpio moon, it would be less connected to like my home and like the healing or the toxicity in the world, right? But it's still this personal place, right? Um, Yeah, so there's this personality that comes with this sort of authoritarian objectivity, right? Which is really cool. Because you'll be able, like, not only will you be able to be like looked up to in a sense of your judgment, but it won't, like, at first it may have this harsh sense, but it's like over time it will develop this real tender quality that it's just like this odd sense of like, I don't know, like love for the authority. I don't know, it's just I just get this real sense of like almost awkwardness in it, because it's still coming from this like rationally stern Saturnian place that's like, I don't really give a fuck, but it's like this trend shows that there is really this care, so it's like this really stern kind of like objective figure like getting love, and it's just like, okay, yeah, like this is good. I don't, yeah, that's kind of the vibe I get. But hey, so that's Aquarius Sun, Cancer Moon. So moving backwards again, now we have the full moon. So this is awesome. This is the height of reception, first of all. Okay, we haven't even gotten to it. Capricorn Sun, Cancer Moon, right? So not only is this the height of reception, but you have your moon in the highest place in the chart, right? So there's a real sense of getting to the soul of something, the soul, the personal soul, right? Because Scorpio can really almost look past the soul and get to the divine relationship. Like it more has to do with trust, um, coming more so with the relationship between myself and nature, right? Like Scorpio is what's going to say, like, if you haven't paid your debts in whatever sense, if you haven't fed yourself, if you haven't blah, 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 and empowered yourself in order to work with nature, like, it's going to take you away, or that power is going to sort of um, induct, like currency or whatever. But Cancer is more, it's more personal. Like, it's not necessarily dealing with your relationship with the collective in Scorpio. It's more so dealing with your relationship with yourself, right? And so this is where there's like strong boundaries here, like really strong boundaries because of this extreme receptivity when it comes to who you let in, right? And they kind of work together, um, because like whatever in your space, you're gonna feel already having a Cancer moon intensely, and to be able to bring out the soul of it, right? But now when it comes down to representing the sort of vision statement or the responsibility of Capricorn, it's like now it feels like um, you're really trying to bring sort of this love for, or this cherishing element to work. It's almost kind of like a work saved me kind of vibe, right? Like we didn't have what we needed, and even the sun and moon opposed can represent a misalignment or an opposition, right, between the mothering and fathering forces, right? So there could be a sense of not feeling security in some sense, whether it's emotional or financial, right? More so probably on the financial side, since the sun is like at the lowest point, right? Sort of at the darkest point. Even though it's not necessarily bad in Capricorn, I just feel like this is the darkest point of the year, you know? So there's kind of this grim element, whereas the moon in Cancer is kind of enjoying everything, right? So it's kind of almost like, because it feels like we had, or we kind of connected to this strong sense of we have what we need, right? Like growing up, like it's all there and we can do what we want. It's kind of like eventually the doors open and we start to see, whoa, like we didn't really have everything that we needed. That was a little bit of an illusion because I was guarded. And the reality check, right, that comes with, whoa, like this was all of the support and like the struggles between like my parents or whatever struggles that were going on in order to keep this like bubble alive, you know, like that was a lot, right? And then the awakening to that can create this dynamic of like, what really kind of eclipsing one's own um, um, eclipsing one's own comforts and kind of feeling a sense of, well, like, do I want the wrong thing? And feeling like I need to be more responsible, right? And then, like, this struggle to try to integrate this love of responsibility, or really making sure one is on the proper path, that can create like an internal turmoil, right? But then can really lead to a strong connection to the work that you do, right? Which is really awesome. And that is like the best part of this is literally like the work that you do is your work, right? Like you do it for yourself, right? And that's really like an amazing thing. Um, yeah, yeah. Talked about the full moon, intense resonance. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about the Cancer moon, Capricorn sun. Um, I just feel like you all are powerful. It's like real like leader energy for real. Because not only is it so like personally defined, but then there's the openness with the moon. So although you represent like a Saturnian um, construct as or a Saturnian archetype having Sun in Capricorn, you're still open having this full moon in Cancer, right? Which allows you to be receptive. Um, and that can kind of be the plus or minus, but I do think that that adds in the leadership qualities, right? Because a Saturn in Capricorn may be a little bit too, or just a Sun in Capricorn alone can be a little bit too dry, um, and may be able to represent something well, but kind of miss nuances when it comes to how people are doing things, and then fall into the situation of just saying the same thing even though it's not being understood, um, just in order to try to get it done my way. But the gift here is to actually being able to take in the people around you, right, and see where they're coming from, such that you're able to express that in a way that actually relates and connects, right? So it's like really powerful in aligning people to what needs to be done, right? And then making them understand the actual worth and like why we should care about this, right? And that's really awesome. Like that's aligning people with responsibility, which is the foundation for our social wellness, right? So fucking props. um, so yeah. So now again, moving to Sun in Sagittarius, Moon in Cancer, right? So, Sun and Sagittarius. Oh my gosh. I love this already. This is a powerful alignment. This is a spiritual alignment. This is a mysterious alignment. This is a beautiful alignment. I love you. Like, I love you. Okay. And I have to say this because I just love spiritual aspects. And one of the things about water and fire when they come together is there's this always unreal sense happening, right? And how this plays out for us is with psychic, sort of internal and external themes, right? Because there isn't a real ground in sense like with earth and air. Air is an actual calculated ability or expression or relationship or objective fact, right? An earth is actual object, body, ability, like embodied ability, mechanic, and like mission statement, right? Like what is going to be done here. There's a real defined sense to earth and air. Now with fire and water, we really have this undefined, open sense, right? And not only that, but you're aligning both of them together, especially having your sun in a fire sign, which jives well with the energy of the sun, right? Being a masculine go-getter, and then your moon in a water sign of Cancer, really drawing from this positive foundation. Okay, so this does sort of have an energy of getting into the wrong thing, like the wrong thing. like one massive wrong thing, or like this kind of accumulative thing that builds up to this dark space. Um, and I bring that up because you are a transformer, aka your moon is eighth house to your sun in the house of transformation, right? So we passed this high point of the full moon, and now we're at this point where the moon is just starting to wane, right? And we're just starting to let go, which is sort of like after you got the goal, right? And you got everything you wanted, it's kind of like this feeling of like, oh shit, like what do I do now? Like it's like this real um lost and kind of like behind the scenes. It's kind of like the depression of success, if you want to think about it. Um, but what this depressive element do is it's kind of this really like wandering, like kind of behind the scenes, and this is kind of why it associates with the eighth house with taboo, because it is behind the scenes, right? And so with this in Cancer, it's like it kind of speaks of this void when it comes down to an emotional connection, um, and then this real sense of like filling that void, right? Because it is like a void, so it's like a vacuum, right? And there's this real sense of getting caught up in something particular, but then realizing that this is something I need to break through, right? Because it's just, yeah, like in all themes, right? Because you as a Sagittarius really represent freedom and to be able to ascend, right? And to be able to find a new way to do anything, right? Like to make anything new, um, in a sense, like kind of the sense of freeing things, right? Like Sagittarius can make like almost anything funny and make anything a vibe, you know? And there's this real free flowing element that allows them to do that, right? Versus Aries, which becomes so personally directed. It's like there's this real sense of freedom, even with how one deals with their self, right? Um, so the interesting element though is like this deep emotional experience is like really creating a strong sense of value, like personal value and personal need, that is then like during the process of this transformation is really going to lead to an integrated sense of value, such that you're literally stepping, you're literally walking, you're literally living a life that feels like home, right? And now you can bring that with you everywhere. Because like I said, with originally this void, it may feel like this is something I have to find and I have to search, right? And then there's like this experience of getting caught up in something that then feels like a trap, right? But then this sense of overcoming that and realizing, oh, this was within me all along. It's just kind of this relationship I have to nurture, and then really being able to represent the unbounding or the breaking free of the chains we put on ourselves emotionally, right? And so I feel like that's just a really powerful like spiritual message like that you represent, which is like so useful, like shine baby shine. So hey, I wish you all the best of luck. Like that's an amazing alignment. I love that. So moving forward or backwards, well, we would have the sun in Scorpio and then the moon in Cancer. Okay. So this would be a representative of power, right? A representative of trust, a representative of taboo, mystery, right? We really, really care about this. And this is this ninth house aspect too, where this is like just reaping the benefits of everything that we've done, right? If we're thinking about it in terms of like the full moon being like the max of the experience, right? Now we're fully in it and receiving, right? Everything's sort of going down right now. And then we sort of let go as we get to the last quarter, and it's sort of this stage of like clearing house, right? and sort of with that taking everything and integrating everything that you've gotten from that experience. So it's kind of in between the just enjoying the fruits of the labor, right, when it comes down to where you come from, right? And this is really really cool, right? Because then this is really this um, empowerment of where you come from, right? And this sort of purification of one's own family line, right? Um, which is really cool. Or we could even think about it more so because it's from the aspect of Scorpio when it comes into relationship of illuminating um, certain aspects of life that people don't want to talk about. It's like you do really care about these things, right? And you're really able just to go out and illuminate things to heal people, right? And this can also be a very triggering energy where you, at the worst of times, may go out and just find problems in people and just give them shit, you know? But like hopefully there, or like I feel like over time, like the theme will kind of be like, hey, like you have this great power, right? Use it responsibly, right? And so this will really allow you to kind of illuminate not what people are doing wrong, like how they could do what they're doing better, right? But like how people are misaligned from the core, right? And really represent how someone isn't stepping from their heart, like they aren't stepping towards their own direction, right? And they may not actually notice this, like because of different um, like experiences they've been through, right? So you have this ability to really like illuminate that it's not that what you're doing is wrong, it's just that maybe you didn't know that this is what you were doing, right? And really showing the pathways, what things lead to, right? And then how to be more in alignment with oneself such that I'm not moving in a direction that I don't really want to go in, right? And that can be a real personal experience, right? That then you're able to bring to the world, right? And really show like I just want to make sure that you are healthy, you know what I mean? Like I want to make sure, and this is really personal too, so it's like with the people that you care about, but it's like I care about you and I want to see you at your best, and I know that this may not necessarily be your best, right? And there's a real sense of being able to illuminate what will again align people with their soul, right? um which is just so useful. Like it's as useful as the saying like, hey, you could do this better, right? Because then they're going to be more efficient. But it's more like, hey, like, did you realize that you've been doing this and it makes me think that this is a trigger for you, and like slowly bringing this up, it's like, whoa, like now I don't have to do this thing that I've been doing for no reason, you know what I mean, that's been holding me back, and I can just get to what I want now, right? And it's sort of illuminating that like there's like a foundational like misstep, right? There's like a misdirection, right? And this can really help illuminate that from person to person, which is really cool. um, yeah, I really like that. It's really cool. um, it's like powerful alignment, right? Because Cancer Moon is creating your foundation in your own personal soul, right? But then Scorpio Sun is expressing that with power, right? um, and so that's just awesome. Because it can be a sense of misusing and getting lost into things that weren't for one's own good, and kind of yeah, like abusing one's own like where one comes from, right? Like whether that's family or this, that, and the third. But then a real sense of reflection and a deep sense of, wow, like this is what I was doing, and introspection that then allows you through that experience to kind of help other people see what they may not see, right? And like I said, help them correct an internal misstep that happens like foundationally that can really save a lot of time and heal a lot of hiccups or prevent a lot of hiccups in the future, right? So it's just really cool. um, like almost like individually, like person to person, like prophetic energy. We're like, oh my god, you're going down that path, really? No. And they're like, what do you mean, what path? Like I'm making money, I'm doing everything right. And you're like, it's right, but and then you're like so yeah, that would be Scorpio Sun, Cancer Moon. So moving backwards again, we have Libra Moon, Cancer Sun. So this is clearing house, right? This is teaching energy in a way, because now we've went past the full moon, right? And now we're at the stage where the moon is waning, right? But we're at that waning square, right? So it's this real sense of needing to kind of keep up with everything that's happening, and hold space, because it's like things are ending and things are coming to a close, but they're not over, right? Like it's near closing time, but it's not closed. And also it's almost like setting it up for the next shift, right? Such that the people that really want to learn, it's like you're kind of the one that is um, helping people that are just getting in the door, you know. And so with Libra Sun, Cancer Moon, this would literally be coming from a place of relationships, art, resonance, classical expression of any kind. Um, yeah. So there's a real sense with Cancer Moon as a Libra being able to relate from a personal place, right? And to really now bring your um, your people, whether that's just you and your family or like a more extended lineage, into the relationships that you're involved in, right? And have this source of personality to what you're involved in, right? Where like maybe um, sometimes it's easy to get involved with relationships superficially, right? Like there's a real sense of almost like attachment here, especially like a real sense of attachment, personal attachment, that maybe like thwarted at first because of how relatable it is, but it is so cardinal too, because it may just be jumping into something that sort of feels right receptively, right? And then sort of getting caught in particular relationships and then realizing maybe this isn't necessarily what I want, right? And through this process, really then understanding what you do need in a relationship, right? And being able to be an advocate for that, right? For personal needs in relation, like how can we both come together but also meet our needs, right? And so I think that that's really empowering, right? Because Libras really do represent the power of relationships, right? And I find this super fascinating because some people don't like this because there's a real feminine aspect to the sun here, which kind of makes it responsive rather than assertive, which people may find almost untrue. But it's not that it's untrue, it's just that it's balancing, right? Like it's dynamic, right? But that doesn't make it false, you know. It just makes it that it's like being calculated, right? It's the scales, right? Like it's weighing the options, right? And so with that real sense, like you really allow people to understand the power of relationships, right? And with this, you can illuminate for people how relationships could be personally healing for them, right? And especially being at this last moon phase, it's almost like um, letting go, like going through these experiences and needing to let go, right? And really experiencing letting go, but then really being able to take this and relate with people that are getting into things super fast, right? And super heated and super passionately. And it's almost like you have the power to like tap the brakes on them, but like classically, like really just like logically, like show like um the missteps that may be being made in connecting too haphazardly, right? And like the necessity to really create a solid foundation and to make sure that you're not projecting on your partner, right? And to know that you two may actually really have a synergy before you start losing yourself in this sort of idealistic admiration, right? And to sort of sort of almost feel this energy in yourself of being like tapped back and sort of like hold on, like we didn't see this, right? And then sort of really creating this sense of realignment with self, right? And then my relationships, right? And then really relating from a sense of self. And this becomes so open ended and empowering too, because the Cancer moon is a feminine element, right? And then having your sun in Libra is really like you merging with other people, but then you really bringing out the soul in that connection, right? To the surface, right? Um, so it's just really powerful in teaching people not only what we can get out of relationships and the personal value of relationships, but also, and this could be, with whatever, right? But also, I lost my thought. Um, yeah, but either way, it just does a great deal on showing people the value of relationships. And not in like a idealistic way, but in a real nourishing way to the self, and how to relate in a way that's nourishing, that feels good, right? That um, allows us to feel like we're ourselves and just open up and just enjoy, right? Um, so this is like a really gift energy. Like it's like you are the gift, like in this alignment, right? But there's a challenge on figuring out like what is worthy of my gift and of my soul, such that I'm not holding myself short, which is going to create like this internal turmoil if you're like stuck for too long, right? Because it's almost like that could be a little bit easy, but also um, internally degrading, right? And that's sort of the challenge that'll create like a lot of wisdom. So, hey, what an alignment. So moving backwards again, we have Virgo Sun, Cancer Moon. So Virgo Sun, Cancer Moon. You're at an 11th house frequency, so now we're really just closing up, right? And there's this real opening up to the next phase starting to happen here. And this real opening up energy from Virgo, right? Yeah, that's so interesting. It is like this figuring out where I can be of value. I feel like there's a real lucrative ability here because, like, literally in terms of money, because you're literally taking the water of Cancer, right, and this emotional element and channeling it, which is literally what empowers us, right? Like, all of like, our will and, like, the will that we channel, right? Because we kind of think of will as more of a direction, but we like channel power, right, with our intent. Um, but either way, you taking in this personal current, right, that actually feeds your own soul, and then expressing it in Virgo, which is literally just perfectly. But then it's like perfectly what, right? So you're able to find a place that is yours, right, and open up to it. And there can be a sense of being taken advantage of, but then really integrating and taking it to the next level, right? It's like you are the hidden sauce that people didn't know they needed, right? Um, and this isn't really in a sense of like flair or like drama or like um, artistic, even though I'm not saying it couldn't be, but where the practical element of Virgo is coming from, it's like you're really going to have this connection. Like it feels very fluid too. Like it feels like there can be a sense of being in one place, but like being a mutable sun, right, and being stuck in one place too long can be um, a little bit tiring. Especially with your moon 11th house to your sun, right? It's like this really likes to open up, sort of socially, right? Um, um, Sort of experience like new social events. Like it does have this real feeling of understanding like who my friends are, and then being their person, right? Um, and that's actually like a real power. Like, I know that sounds kind of classic, but to really have that strong friend group, right, and to really create that, but then to really hold that valuably, right, like to actually be a resource for whatever that may be, because it's like there's such a open-ended energy here. Like your Cancer moon is really going to anchor you to particular groups, right, and to particular places, right, and to particular like environments, right. But then your sun is really going to allow you to take whatever is being done there to the next level, right? It's not really being creative and adding something new there, but it's like your ability to take what's already there socially and bring it to the next level is what could possibly be taken advantage of, but could also make you super valuable, right? So this is literally like the valuable friend like construct, you know. So yeah, so that's just really awesome. Like it seems just really lucrative, really powerful, really grounded, potentially stuck and needing to really open up to where you can really not feel like you've just settled. Like there's a real sense of almost not like needing to not settle because of how valuable you are. But yeah, that real sense of being able to bring that value to whatever you participate in, right? And that's so awesome. So hey, that's Virgo Sun, Cancer Moon. So moving to our last alignment of the day, we have the the best alignment probably of all alignments, right? It's like the royal alignment. We have Leo Sun, Cancer Moon, right? And this is really interesting because this puts, if we have Leo Moon, or if we have Leo Sun, Cancer Moon, right? This puts the moon in a 12th house angle to Leo, right? So like, this is a really interesting energy because this is meaningfully purposed, right? And purpose versus creativity, purpose Leo versus creativity Aries, already has this sense of pride, right? Which comes from, which is a synergy with the collective, right? Um, and we can know this because if you're proud of something that isn't right, there's kind of a delusional element to it, right? So this is where like the ego tends to lean like right, even though people are like, oh, they're just selfish. No, the ego tends to lean right, aka do things that it can be proud of, aka represent, you know, and then be praised for, right? Leo, oh, I'm the center of attention, I did good, you know, um, but that comes from that pride. And the reason that I say this is because there's already a strong connection with that Leo sun, right? And where one's going and that creative element and filling out that role and expressing it and being a real individual, like being me and fucking representing it, you know? But not only do you have that aspect, but there's like this whole, like, it's kind of divinely inspired here. Like, not only are you a Leo, but having the Cancer moon, 12th house to your sun, it's like, it's such a deeper personal connection. Like, the meaning that is really coming from your soul, potentially your people, right? Your body. It could be more historic, but it could just as well be um, more your soul, right? But there's this real meaningful connection, right? That's being expressed in your direction, right? In where you go, in what you do. So it's like where some Leos, maybe with more mutable moons, may ride the current of what is honorable, right? It's like you're really taking this sense of meaning and personal value and representing it, right? So there can be this almost out of the box and sort of looked at in the wrong light, like a lot of the times maybe, but also like understanding how to get past that block and really bring what that vision is and that sort of mental overarching drive and to really bring it to the surface. And there's almost like a difficulty really showing that, right? Um, like there's a real letting go and like spiritual phase. So it's almost like some of that connection that you have, like this real sense of meaning, right? And what is meaningful and what is valuable and what is worth spending our time on and what is worth showing, right? There may be a real sense of integrating that with what people want to see, right? And actually making that worth being seen. And it may be the sense of like, oh, people want to see that. Why don't they want to see this, right? And this is really bringing new and out of the box things, but yet simply like they're not even out of the box. They're just you, right? It's not even like that weird. It's just because it's so personal, it gives it this unique hue, and it's really this challenge of bringing the uniqueness of yourself and where you come from to the forefront, right? And this will literally expand from every direction what we see possible, just by expressing ourselves, right? So there's a real um, like evolution of the solar energy here, which is so cool. And by that I mean like by just living out who we want to live out and who we want to be, well, what does that mean to us, right? And there's a real deepening of a personal connection to self happening here, which, like I said, can be looked at weird, like, why do you really represent that, right? But then you'll be able to show us, like, hey, sometimes we represent things that are out of the box, and everybody else will be able to experience a unique performance instead of just a performance, you know? And this will really up the ante behind what we even look at as being a person, as being a something, you know? And yeah, the real evolution of that I find awesome. But like I said, it's through that struggle of feeling like there's like this personal connection that I can't quite relate, that I can't quite bring to the forefront, right? And when I do, like if it seems kind of skewed and off or it's taken the wrong way, right? And then getting past that challenge and then really integrating the psyche and where you come from into this expression like beautifully such that it can be appreciated, right? And like I said, that's gonna break us out the box. That's fucking awesome. So hey, this has been Cancer Moon, all sun signs, bubbling.